So, a different topic.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, John.
How are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm absolutely fantastic today.
I think we're both finally over sickness, both ourselves and probably in our households.
Yeah. For the well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, actually. Just a couple of nights ago, this week my wife had strep throat,
right?
And so she's been on antibiotics for that. 2 nights ago, she is putting our daughter to sleep, and they're kind of going through the routine of like, show me where your nose is. And so my daughter like points to her nose, and then Kate was like, show me where my nose is. So Lucy points at Kate's nose, and then she's like, where's my eye? And so Lucy takes her sharp, dirty fingernail and just jabs Kate in the eyeball. And so Lucy gets put down for bed, and Kate comes out and she's like, man, my eye just really hurts. Woke up the next day, is just super red. Turns out she has a cornea abrasion. And so we went to an ophthalmologist so she could get checked out. And sure enough, she's got a scratch on her cornea.
Awesome.
So now she's still trying to finish off her antibiotics for strep throat, and now she has to have antibiotic eye drops to fix her eyeball.
And you can't get upset at the kid. Lucy didn't know any better. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, being a parent, it's great, isn't it?
It's, I guess. Sometimes it is. It's, it's extremely high highs and extremely low lows. I was having this conversation with somebody else fairly recently, and who's also a parent, and he agreed. It's you have these times where you're so proud to be a parent. You're so proud of your kid. You're seeing them grow up, and they're learning new words, and they're getting more agile. They're able to walk around, and Lucy's learning how to jump, which is cool. She's never jumped before. She's kind of trying to figure it out. And all of that's great. All those things are, really great, like really high highs. But then when the lows come around, they can be just utterly devastatingly low. Your lows can be super, super, super low.
Well, I mean, you only have like a lifetime more of that too.
Yeah.
And the nice phrase that people use is, well, you only have it for 18 years. No,
that's wrong.
it's a lifetime thing. My parents are still proud and devastated by me, and my 19-year-old, well, granted, he's living in our house still, but our 19-year-old is still screwing up terribly and making us so very proud. The 8-year-old, he's just kind of leveled out for the moment, but he's sure to screw up or do something great pretty soon.
I can't believe how old they all are. It's so weird.
Well, when we met, we've
known each other a long time.
Yeah. I only had 2 when we met, I think.
Yeah, and they were young.
Yeah. And well, no, we had just had our 3rd. And let's see. So my oldest would have been about like 7 or 8 at the very top. No, more like 6 when we met.
No, you only had the 2. It was just Brian and Ethan.
Was Tyler born after? Yeah, I guess he was born after the call center. So well, I only had 2. So that would have made Brian at the very most 6, because that's how old he was when Sarah was born. So,
yeah. Are you? Did you get permission from your wife to use names, or am I going to have to go bleep those out?
No. We have all agreed that we can use our family names. So,
okay, great. Speaking of family, I was curious, how's Tyler started a gaming YouTube channel. How's that going? And I only know of the one stream.
Oh, he's done 4 more. I'm pretty sure it's 4. Maybe it's a total of 4. but we're due to do another stream today, and every time he streams, he gets all of one viewer, and that's me as I'm watching it stream in the creator studio, just in case somebody pops in and decides to chat.
That's cool, though. You know, I mean, is he having fun at least?
Yeah, he's having fun. He still thinks it is the coolest thing ever. I mean, well, it's kind of like us with this podcast too. It's like we have 4 or 5 listeners, and I'm pretty sure that's you, me, and maybe one of our family members or a good friend of ours. Like
I think my friend Kyle, the guy who runs the Clearance Aisle YouTube channel, I think he listens.
He's a subscriber. I know that for sure. We have all of 8 subscribers, and we are very well aware of who each one of those people is. Yeah. And we don't even get that many listeners every time. Yet this is the coolest thing that we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I thoroughly enjoy this.
Yeah.
We're getting a little better at it over time. We got, I feel like our presence is getting better. We're getting better at changing topics. That's still a little rough from time to time, but
I think a big part of this is just an improvement, and we enjoy doing it with each other. It's something we enjoy doing, and if we ever get an audience, great. I welcome more people to listen. I welcome them to interact with us. We've got
absolutely
the Reddit page. We've got a podcast home. We've got YouTube. We're more than willing to interact and entertain topic ideas and everything that a show with a full audience enjoys doing.
Yeah.
But until that point, I'm still just having fun talking with you and exploring these subjects. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. And on that note, you want to just go ahead and hit our first topic?
Yeah. So
what is it? Tell me what it is.
Surprise our first topic is free will. Do we have predestination? Do we have free will? There's physics involved. It's your topic. So actually you explain it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't remember which episode it was. It was an early, maybe 1 or 2.
You say early, like we're not still in our early episodes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was a pretty, it was like, I think episode 1 or episode 2, we kind of hit on free will as part of another topic. And going back and listening to that podcast, I realized that you started to say something about how if we don't have, it sounded like you were saying that if we didn't have free will, then everything must be predetermined. And I didn't hear that at the time because I was talking, you kind of talked over me.
Right.
And, or maybe I even interrupted you because I do that to everyone. But whatever it was, I didn't hear that you had said that. Otherwise I would have jumped on it. And so I've been kind of chomping at the bit to revisit that. So I guess what I wanted to ask you, let me back up. One of the things I said on that episode was that I'm becoming increasingly convinced that we don't have free will, and I'm still on the fence. But the more thought I give it, and the more stuff I see about free will, about how decisions are made in the mind, in the brain, the less I feel like I'm in control of those things. And so I'd love to talk about that specifically with you, but I wanted to start with the question, is that comment about predestination or predetermined futures actually what you meant? Like if we don't have, is that a stance you have? Like if we don't have free will, then everything's predetermined?
Well, if we don't have the ability to make a choice, which is what I think of as not having free will, then if everything we're doing is we don't have a choice in what we're actually doing, if if we see something that we perceive as being a choice, say the option between two pens, and I think that was one of the examples you were using when we were just touching on it before.
Right.
You choose one pen because you like that pen. Now is that a choice you made, even though it's biased because of a preference you had for that pen? Or were you going to pick that pen no matter what because of that bias and there wasn't truly a choice there, and therefore it was predetermined that you're going to pick that pen if you ran the study 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times, if you were able to somehow reset you right before that choice and rerun that choice 1,000,000 times, would you have picked that pen 1,000,000 times, or would there have been 500,000 times where you picked the other pen? Probably not. Maybe 20,000 times you picked the other pen. That's what I envision as being the difference between free choice and not, or free will and not having free will. Will you actually pick that pen every time?
So, let's unpack that a little bit. Now it's going to sound like I'm arguing against the existence of free will. I'd just want to be clear that I don't hold an opinion one way or the other at this point.
Okay.
I'm unconvinced either way. I'm as in the middle as I can be. So let's talk about the pen. So I think in that episode, I mentioned that in front of me, I had two pens. But I picked the one on the left because I prefer that pen. But the thing is, I didn't choose to prefer the pen. That's where I'm getting caught up in this whole free will thing. I had the free choice between them. I could have picked the other pen, but I wouldn't pick it because I don't like that pen. I neither chose to like pen A or dislike pen B. Okay. Those things are happening to me without having any control. So when I started inspecting that kind of thing, that kind of decision throughout my entire life, why do I prefer the color blue? Why do I like anodized aluminum? Why do I like, why do I prefer Yeti thermoses to Tervis? Actually that's scientific. I can answer that question.
That's not so much of a equal things though. There are definitive reasons why you like a Yeti cup over a Tervis. There's properties that differentiate those. But why do you like blue rather than red?
Let's back up. Let's back up and go back to the Yeti and Tervis thing. So for anyone who doesn't know, Yeti and Tervis both make thermos style vessels for beverages and foods, right? So I have in front of me right now, I think it's a 32 ounce tumbler. It's a pretty big Yeti tumbler.
The funny thing is I have that same style Yeti tumbler in my hand right now myself.
Oh, great. Great. Mine's black. So I prefer the Yeti to the Tervis, and Tervis, in my experience, all of the Tervis products have been plastic. Right. And I have objective evidence. I have actually done the experiment with the same amount of ice going into both cups, and the Tervis ice melts significantly faster than the ice in the Yeti. So the Yeti is objectively better at keeping things cold than the Tervis. So I switched. It makes sense. So that's why I switched. But why do I prefer a better performing insulated cup? Now,
because you won't leave your liquids cold.
Well, right. But that might sound ridiculous because, of course, everyone wants the better insulated cup. But here's the thing. There's a big drawback to having a Yeti. They're very heavy. They're big. They're loud because they're metal. I mean, they're loud. They bang. The ice is loud in them. They're big and heavy. Those are really good reasons to not carry one around with you all day.
And you know what? There may be people out there that prefer Tervis because of that exactly.
Right. So that's exactly my point. So it's, even though I have an objective reason for choosing Yeti, that sounds like I have chosen of my own free will. But what I didn't have the choice of, I didn't choose to prefer physical objective evidence over the weight of the cup. So the thing.
Hold on now. You're saying that you didn't have the decision or the choice to choose which one you preferred, and you said that one's objective while the other is the weight. Weight is just as much of an objective scientific measurement as how long it keeps
wasn't clear.
Okay.
I wasn't clear. Let me try that again. So I prefer the insulated cup that performs the insulation task better.
Okay.
I prefer that over how big and heavy it is. So the weight, or the weight rather. So I care enough more about the performance of the thermal performance of this cup than I do about its weight.
Right.
Why do I have that preference? I didn't choose to have that preference. That preference happens to me. That's where I lose the ability to make that decision. Now, I still have the choice. I have Tervises. Turvi? I Tervises.
I think Tervises is right, but who knows?
Okay.
I mean, we're not talking about GIF and GIF here.
Or GIFs and GIFs. I have Tervises and I use them occasionally, but the only time I ever use them is when all of the Yetis are dirty. We have 4 32-ounce Yeti tumblers in the house. So, because we love them so much. And, eventually at some point they're all dirty, or we can't find one, or, whatever the reason is. So we end up getting the Tervis because it's the next best thing.
Look, I think we've already established that you are the artificial life form to support my experience in this false reality that we live in, or that I live in. I think we've already established that, right?
Okay.
I mean,
sure.
you argue with me on it, but we've established it. Come on.
Well, okay. Whatever you say, creator.
I didn't say I created you. I said you're a support to my experience of this reality. Somebody else created the reality for me to experience.
Okay. It's not full on solipsism. You're not the god of your own universe. Okay.
I cannot manipulate the reality anymore. Then you can manipulate it. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can manipulate it for me, and you're part of the program, and you're part of the structure that guides me to whatever outcome is needed. I don't know, but
the outcome that's needed right now is we need to finish this illustration about free will.
So you're saying get off the tangent.
Yeah, get off the tangent. Let's come back for a second. So what I'm trying to say is I have the experience of freely choosing between a Yeti and a Tervis.
Right.
Or, that's not a false dichotomy. There's obviously myriad other options. I could just hold the water in my hands
and sip it out.
I could use a plastic cup. Yeah, I could use a plastic cup. But I prefer a well-performing insulated vessel for my beverages. Now, why do I have that preference? I didn't choose to have that preference. So when it comes to making the decision between a poorly performing insulated cup and a well-performing insulated cup, I'm going to choose the well-performing one. But the thing that drives me to make that decision is not something I have control of. You following me?
Yeah, I'm following you. I'm trying to figure out if there's some way that I can disassemble that and flip a piece of it or break it somehow. Not that I disagree with it as per se. I'm trying to examine it and see if there's a flaw in the argument, right? Which is a large part of why this podcast exists. This is why we wanted to sit around and talk. We like doing this already. We just wanted to start recording it for other people.
Come back off the tangent, buddy.
Yeah. So, wait, who's the topic czar here?
I just really want to unpack this before we have to move on to something else.
So I understand what you're saying. You're saying that it's not the choice between two cups. It's the factors that drive that choice for you to consistently choose the Yeti over the Tervis, or the Yeti over just a plain plastic wall cup, or the Yeti over a glass or whatever other vessel that you could have drank from. Heck, you could have gotten a pot out of a drawer and put water in that and drank out of it.
Right.
But you chose the Yeti.
Right.
Meanwhile, I chose a pot to have my cereal in last night when I ate cereal for dinner.
Real classy.
Hey, look, no other bowl was big enough for how much I wanted.
There's so much to even say about that. You had cereal for dinner, which is weird. And for some reason, you didn't use a bowl. You used a pot. You should have vlogged that so we would be able to cut to some content. Like we could cut to a video of you doing that.
My
right
big
now.
ass cereal bowl is missing, so I had to use a pot. It was a small pot. It was like a little saucepan sized pot.
Right.
But you know, we used to have this like 4-cup measuring cup that we used as a cereal bowl so that we could get enough cereal to actually, because the serving size in cereal is ridiculous. I'm sorry. And that may be a whole nother topic about serving sizes and who actually thinks anybody eats one Pop-Tart when they're packaged in two or a fruit roll-up. I mean, who doesn't tear open a box of fruit roll-ups and wrap every finger in a fruit roll-up and then eat it off, right? I mean, those are normal things, right? I'm not insane here, right? Maybe I'm insane. Okay. But as far as the choice between the cups, I understand that the free will part isn't actually the availability of the choice. It's that you didn't choose the drivers of your choice. But those are often based in life experiences. But still, that doesn't mean that you chose the experiences that formed those preferences.
Exactly. You're going exactly in the direction that where I got stuck between having a solid opinion on whether free will exists or doesn't. Because there are so many factors that go into the things that influence you to make a decision or to prefer R&B to heavy metal, to prefer red and against blue, to prefer Yeti over Tervis.
And some of those things may be genetically predetermined.
They might be. They very well could be. Some of those things could be. Some things could be just the nature, like not nature, but the things around you. I have always gravitated toward accessories, like in my room, when my bedroom when I was a kid, to in my cars as an adult, and in my houses that are black, and I couldn't find a black Tervis. So I have a black Yeti. I like black and silver things. Like I'm looking at my desk right now, and literally everything on it is black. or has a lot of black in it.
Black is a excellent design choice. Personally, I'm sure
so, most that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what it is that made me like black objects, but I do prefer that. So it's the choice between a black, like a black bezeled display, like computer monitor, and a silver bezeled display for my computer, isn't really a free choice. I wouldn't choose the silver one, all other things being equal. So that choice isn't free. It feels free, but it technically isn't, because I wouldn't choose the other one.
The choice is free. Your preference has already been set. So
right. So it's not that the decisions have already been predetermined by some, a lot of people, whenever we start talking about free will, they immediately go to like, like creator gods or some kind of spiritual cosmic mumbo jumbo. Well, that it just isn't relevant here.
Yeah, that's totally completely irrelevant unless you have a lack of free will because there's somebody pulling strings and forcing you to make every choice and is doing that for every other being and living object and molecule in the universe, which is, it boggles the mind, really. But that kind of comes back to, what if we're living in a virtual reality? Then that is actually legitimately the case. Everything is being decided by a program, which arguably one or a group of people wrote, or maybe artificial life forms wrote. It doesn't matter. It's conceivable that everything in the universe, known or unknown, is being manipulated and being controlled right down to the velocity of every particle by some supercomputer.
Yeah. It's possible, but I mean, even in that model, it's possible that free will exists.
True.
Because it's possible that I could have full free choice over, which pen I like or which insulated cup I prefer.
Because after all, even if we're living in a virtual reality, at least one of us has consciousness and free will. It's just a matter of who else either has consciousness, or is everybody put there to satisfy the experience of one conscious entity in this virtual reality, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know of a good test to tell really whether, if we're in a virtual reality, because I believe I'm conscious. So if we're in a virtual reality, how do I test to say that you're conscious, that my wife's conscious, that all four of my kids are conscious, that everybody I interact with is conscious, or if they're just put there to satisfy my perception of reality? And in which case, that's all I know, and I don't really know of any way to test that they're conscious, because that's all I've known. That is what I believe to be true, is that everybody around me is conscious.
Yeah, for sure. That stuff is wacky.
Yeah.
There's a whole, we're half an hour in, just about, I don't want to monopolize this conversation.
It's a good conversation to be monopolizing an episode, though. I'm not upset with the time so far.
Okay, well, great. Then I'm gonna take this to the next step then.
Okay.
Another thing that seems to come up when I have these conversations about the possibility that maybe free will doesn't exist is the more astute observer may tend to make the connection to the justice system. And let's just take a it doesn't matter what the crime is for this example. But let's just imagine that you're being tried for something. You're in court.
Well, it kind of matters. Am I being tried by a single judge or is it by a jury? What are we talking about here?
It's irrelevant for this example. So let me just step through this for now, and we'll get there.
Set the framework. Yeah.
So generally, people feel like, in my experience and in what I've read on the topic, people seem to feel that a large driver for the criminal justice system is getting people convicted for crimes that they could have not done. They could have done otherwise. So I steal a loaf of bread from a grocery store. Well, I could have not stolen that, but I didn't not steal it. I did steal it. So I broke the law. And now I'm in court being tried for theft, right? For stealing this loaf of bread from the store.
Okay.
If you don't have free will, then you couldn't have done otherwise. So I see that direction that the justice system tries to take, saying that you had the choice to not steal the bread, but you did. So now you're going to jail, or now you have a fine, or whatever the penalty is for stealing bread. But so people bring this up. You if you don't have free will, then you couldn't have done otherwise. But the person who stole the bread should still be punished. All right. I agree with you. I agree with that. Someone who is acting against the norms of society needs to be corrected. And, we can talk about punishment and all that stuff some other time, probably. But I feel like with or without free will, somebody who commits a crime should be corrected. If the crime is bad enough, they should be removed. All right, now, I'm not saying capital punishment, but I'm fine with life in prison. So not for stealing bread.
So yeah, no, not for stealing bread. Okay, so
right.
So now let's bring it back to the Yeti cup argument. So now you still have 4 Yetis in your household.
Mm-hmm.
Tervises, tumblers of, huh?
I said 2 silver, 1 black, 1 blue.
Okay. But now all of a sudden it is illegal to use the Yeti cups, punishable by a $300 fine. Repeat offenses may land you in a more strict punishment. Punishment doesn't really matter. There's a punishment associated with using the Yeti cup.
Okay.
You still have that choice between a Yeti and Tervis because they're still there.
Right.
There is another condition or another property now associated with that cup, and there's the possibility if somebody found out that you used it, not necessarily all the time, not every time you picked it up. There's nothing there to tip the justice system or whoever's monitoring this. There's nothing there to let them know that you used it. But if you use it and you're caught using it, you'll at least be fined or some sort of punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a choice that with consequences as to which one you use. You can continue using the Yeti and hope nobody finds out.
Right.
You can start using the Tervis.
So, is there a question at the end of that, or am I interrupting you?
No. Well, I mean, it comes down to: do you still feel like you have the choice to use the Tervis or Yeti? Yes. Okay. Yes. So is it a free will choice, or is
in the model where in the model where we don't have free will and all of the choices we make are driven by prior experiences.
Uh-huh.
All you did was give me another property other than big and heavy. You gave me big, heavy, and illegal.
Right.
But exactly the same function is happening there. I'm still doing a cost benefit analysis. I'm saying, is the cost of using the Yeti lower or like low enough for me to pay it every time I pick it up?
Yeah.
And that preference to not get caught and not have to pay a $300 fine. To me, I would rather not get caught. So I would probably get rid of my Yeti in that case. Like I would probably just remove it from my house and just switch to Tervis only. Because, you never know who's gonna hear it in the background. I mean, I'm on the internet.
Yeah.
They hear it rattle and they're like, oh, I know that sound. That's a Yeti.
Oh, that's a Yeti.
Next thing I know,
getting fined.
Yeah. Next thing I know, I've got, authorities at my house confiscating my Yetis and charging me, and fining me $300.
Yeah.
And so I would just get rid of them. But other people wouldn't get rid of them because there are people today who are criminals. They do exactly this thing with drugs.
Right.
Like if no one catches me with this particular, like I say me, I don't do drugs. If I had an illegal substance on me, I would be hoping that no one caught me with it. If I was using that illegal substance, I would hope that nobody caught me using that illegal substance.
So it comes down to
the benefit that they get out of doing that illegal thing is better than not doing it to avoid the possible punishment.
So in the case of a punishment, it comes down to cost benefit analysis.
But it always is cost benefit analysis, and your preference to what you're willing to pay is not a decision you make. It's given to you. It's you are making those the decisions that you make in that cost benefit analysis are not things that you picked.
And although it's different for every person, it's still not something the individual person has chosen. Specifically, this is my cost benefit that I choose to have.
Yeah, let's equate it to speeding. I drive a fast car. I have a car that is fast. It makes me want to speed. So I speed. I drive fast. I kind of live out in on the edge of a rural area. So I'm kind of in the fringes of this particular county. There's lots of empty straight roads. I'm in the triple digits on my speedometer frequently. Okay.
Okay.
But the thing is, if the first time I crossed 100 miles an hour, I went to jail, I'd be scared to death to speed. But the thing is, I've never been caught. So the cost benefit, the ratio of risk to reward changes every single time I speed. I get out there and I go fast. It's fun and I still don't get caught. That the risk feels lower. Even though it's exactly the same, the risk feels lower. Do it again, risk feels lower. Do it again, risk feels even lower. So now I feel great about speeding out here in the middle of nowhere. Like I drive fast like crazy when it's just me. I don't have my wife or daughter in the car. But those are things that are that the decision to speed is still there's nothing in the universe that's making me choose to speed, but the choice to not speed doesn't appeal to me. I'd much rather be going fast.
But
and the risk for it feels low.
But you could go slower. You choose not to go slower. You choose to speed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is really hard to say. Well, yeah, that's totally not your not really a choice. It's what you're led to do by your past experience, because that is true, but it's also really hard to say, well, you have no choice in that because I mean, technically you do still have the option to go slower. You're just not doing it.
The choice has presented itself. I have the choice, but my ability to choose driving slowly is limited. I will more reliably choose drive fast.
This is the point at which I wish we had an expert in philosophy or an expert in neuroscience.
A neuroscientist.
Yeah.
So let's go there.
This is where I wish we had the ability to get a guest pop in and give their opinion on it too. Because this is really a hard topic. I mean, it's very...
Yeah, it really is. So I'd like to share some research with you. I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't have the source right now.
I hope you can get it for the video though.
Yeah, if I can find it, I'll put it in the description. There some people did fMRI, which is a functional magnetic resonance imaging, of a brain, of many brains that were given decisions. They were given choices. Something that's interesting about this is that the participants in the study were told that they had buttons to press. It's like an A button and a B button.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would have two things on the screen, and they were supposed to choose something as soon as they felt like the instant they felt like they had made a decision. Don't linger on it. Just like as soon as you see A and you want to pick A, you pick A.
I think I saw something about this on Minefield.
Okay.
Where
it's possible.
Or maybe not Minefield, maybe it was Vsauce or something like that. But
sure.
Where they were able to see the choice that they made
before
they hit the button. Before they were aware that they had made a choice. Yeah.
Yes. Now this experiment was I keep trying to say escalated, they grew this experiment outside of the fMRI machines and put people in rooms with these caps on that have all kinds of electrodes and can kind of see what your brain activity is.
Yeah, I remember this.
They gave them some access to things that were they would have choices of objects on a table. And in some cases, the researchers were able to see in real time when the decision was made. And it was sometimes several seconds before the person actually got up and went to the table and picked up whatever it was they had chosen.
I want to say the experiment that I saw, there was a light or a couple of lights, and they were supposed to choose between the buttons that would light up a light, and they hooked up the sensor after the fMRI stage when they could just read it off of like a cap type of sensor array. When they got tuned in to the subjects, they were supposed to hit a light, but the computers got so good at being able to read what their choice was going to be that the light would light up before they even got their hand over to the button.
Right. Yeah. And so let's take that experience, take that research and have and see what does that have to do with free will? Well, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm a layman. I'm less than a layman in a lot of this.
Yeah.
What that says to me is that at the very least, our conscious experience of that decision isn't free, because those people were waiting on their subconscious mind to give them their choice, but they didn't know that. What they thought they were doing was trying to decide. Now, this is an experiment. The neuroscientist and author Sam Harris gave this experience, or did this experiment with some folks at I think it was a TED Talk on free will. And I'll ask you the same question. take a second and just think of some cities. Just think of some city names, and then just pick one. Don't say it. Just kind of have it in your mind.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that you've done that.
Okay.
So now kind of go back and analyze the experience that you just had. Your mind, it feels like you had free choice to pick any city you wanted. But this blew my mind when I first saw this. Even though it felt like you had free choice, you couldn't have picked something that didn't come to your mind. And you were not in charge. You were not in control of the names of cities that appeared in your mind. You didn't say, I'm going to think of Denver. I'm going to think of Dallas. I'm going to think of San Diego. I'm going to think of New York. Your subconscious mind was just like, here are some names of cities. And then you picked out of that list. Your choice was not free.
Yeah, but that's like saying we know what consciousness is.
How is that the same thing?
Okay, bear with me here. So we go back to the idea that our subconscious makes a choice before we consciously realize what that choice is. So that's not saying that we didn't make a choice that choice was going to be that because our subconscious made that choice before we knew that choice was made. That's saying that we made that choice. We didn't realize we made that choice and it wasn't brought up to a conscious level yet. But every time that it goes from subconscious to conscious, it remains the same reliably from subconscious to conscious, and then we act on that choice. But we don't know enough about consciousness. We don't know enough about actually how we experience things and how our organic computer works enough.
Well, I need to back you up. So what we're talking about though is the freedom of choice, and your choice was not as free as your experience of that choice seemed. You could not have chosen a city name that did not come to your mind. Like I'm going to just guess that you didn't think of Islamabad. Why didn't you think of Islamabad?
Did I know about Islamabad before you said the name Islamabad?
Why didn't you think of Cairo? Why didn't you think of Kansas City?
Well, and on that thought process, just because I didn't go through the list of every city that I have in my consciousness or subconsciousness, as it were, and because I didn't go through it consciously, doesn't mean that there wasn't a process that took place underneath my conscious thought that...
Exactly. You weren't in control of that, though. That happened to you. Your conscious experience was manipulated by your subconscious experience, and you do not have control of your subconscious experience. The names of cities that come to your mind are clearly driven by some other force happening around you. You hear somebody mention something about Dallas. And so later in the day, when you're doing your podcast and your friend says, think of city names, Dallas, bang, there it is. You didn't choose that to happen. It just happened to you. And so your free choice is limited. You don't actually have that same, the level of freedom in your choice that it feels like you have at the moment you're making it.
So that's
not at all to say that you're not the one making the choice. You are. It's not like it's like I said earlier, it's not like there's some cosmic guiding choice maker. You're still the one making the choice. I'm arguing that you don't have free choice.
You don't have the conscious will over the choice. I'm not so sure that that's equivalent to you not having free choice, though. You may not have as much conscious will over your choices as a common person believes. But is that the same thing as saying you don't have free will?
I don't know.
That's a very good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have to mull on that, and we've gotten to a point where we definitely want to wrap this up for the time being, at least. This may definitely.
I wonder if Alexa has an opinion on free will.
I don't have a Echo in the room with me.
Yeah, I don't either. That's okay.
But
we can't. That's okay. We can ask Siri or Alexa later.
Yeah, we can ask them later. Talking about that, though, time for a different topic. It's becoming one of our favorite topics or segments, however you want to call it.
We're doing a shower thought.
We're doing a shower thought.
I love the shower thoughts. These are so fun.
Let's go ahead and get out our soap and get the water to the right temperature. Today's shower thought. Thanks to Siri, Alexa, and Google, a whole generation of children will associate female voices with infinite knowledge. And this was thought up by Boston Terrier Pug on Reddit.
Boston Terrier Pug.
Boston Terrier Pug. So
that's pretty funny.
And as I said that, one of my puppies just wanders in the room. But anyways, so yeah, Alexa, Siri, and Google all use female voices as their at least as their default voices. I don't know of a way to change it in Alexa or Google offhand. I don't know about Siri. I'm not aware of a way to change it in Siri, but it's always a female voice, at least in the American market, right?
Yeah. Well, by default anyway, yeah.
Yeah, by default. And let's face it, probably 98, 99% of average consumers are not going to change it off default anyways. Whatever it comes as, that's what they're using. They're not going to care.
Yeah.
If there's a British voice, I'm changing it to a British voice, but it's still going to stay female. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I do the exact same thing. So this is kind of interesting. I got curious. I knew that the Greek goddess of wisdom is Athena, and so I was like, yeah. I wonder how many other gods in like ancient religions were over things like knowledge and wisdom, and how many of them were female. And I'm scrolling through this list on Wikipedia, and the vast majority of them are female.
Wow. So
that's pretty cool. So
it's not necessarily just
associate.
Yeah, that is really cool. Which is really weird that when you think of a scientist, what sex are they?
Male.
When you think of a doctor, what sexes are they?
Male.
And yet our ancestral and common go-to for a source of wisdom
is female.
Is that a comment on sexism or
maybe?
Wow.
It could be. Man, I'm going through this list and it's just female name after female name after female name. And there are male names here for sure. And the more I go through this, it looks like it's probably closer to half, like half and half. I don't know. I see a lot of female names here. So I kind of wonder though, because these are deities, men, I'm not a chauvinist. Men who, like, because historically the big achievers are usually men, right? You've got men that carry militaries around the world and kill hundreds of thousands or millions of people. You have men that lead governments and kill millions of people. You've got, it's men are generally doing the at least in history, men are responsible for a lot of the advancement, the boots on the ground, so to speak, of advancing civilization. But it looks like those same men would have been following religions where they get their wisdom from female deities.
Now,
And
the question for me there is it does that make it a knowledge of a progressive thing that has equality throughout the ages, or is it that it's a sexist thing in that our coupling of advancement and power is and leadership is coupled to things like war and dominance, and we think of, or in the past at least, we have knowledge as a place of it's not that important to us actually getting ahead in life. We need to do more than we need to know. And therefore, some chick can be the knowledge god. Our god of war and our god of leadership are both men. So right. We're on the right path.
Yeah, this is, you mentioned needing a neuroscientist earlier. I feel like we need an ancient religion expert to talk to here, because this would be really interesting to kind of try to break down and find out, why did the people who wrote the myths around the Greek gods choose women or choose whatever gender it was for each of the different types of gods. That'd be a super fascinating conversation. But anyway, we took a tangent here, and it's my fault. We were talking about the
female voices used by digital assistants today.
Yeah, which
will lead our children to think of a female as the holder of infinite knowledge.
I mean, I can't remember anything, so I constantly ask my wife questions. So she's the one that knows everything. When if I don't know it, I go to her. So
hey, I'm already do really that. The same way. So maybe there's a link there between females tending, not necessarily always. I'm not trying to make a absolute here, but females tending to have better memory retrieval skills than men.
Yeah.
And maybe that's
at the very least the like husband's choice to go to their wives for knowledge may have driven the choice of female knowledge and wisdom deities, as well as female voices for virtual assistants.
I don't know if it's so much of a choice, though. If I went to some random woman for that,
because they didn't have free will.
Well, not so much that necessarily. That if I went to some random woman, my wife might just try and shoot me. Yeah. So, granted, I definitely don't have free will in that choice. I have to go to my wife if I have a question about anything.
Stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. So we're crossing the hour mark here. Do you want to hit one more shower thought before we wrap up?
So yeah, we can keep on scrubbing down here. We can hit one more shower thought real quick.
Your
gotta
segues,
stop
man.
with this. Yeah. All right. Well,
make sure to check your water temp if it's getting a little cold. Make sure.
Yeah, you might have to bump that hot water up a little bit. Stay warm and limber.
And if that's happening, though, that means that you're on a tank, and you should really consider what's best for the environment and your experience in the shower, and go tankless.
Yeah, go tankless. Never mind the larger tank or how much water you're using. Just make it to where you can use an infinite amount of water. Yeah. Let's face it, that is not an environmental choice. That is just, I hate when my water gets cold and I want to use more water.
Oh, come on. Did you know that it seems intuitive, but it hadn't really occurred to me. Did you know that the amount of water on Earth has either stayed constant or grown over time. It has not gone down.
Okay, so there's a shower thought. Let's drop what's on our list right now. We'll save those for later.
Okay.
Water usage. Since the water cycle on Earth traps the water usage, and the only thing that can really happen is more added in by, say, a meteor or something else coming into the atmosphere and contributing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, with the exception of, actually, now that we've had shuttles and other spacecraft leave, we do have a way that water has possibly gone out of our atmosphere.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's true, because a human being may take water with them and then evacuate their bladder into space. That's
something
likely.
Like that. Yeah. And so
it is a very insignificant amount, though.
Exactly. So, in fact, meteors coming in would be an insignificant amount of water that would be brought into. So let's consider that the water cycle is static. We don't add or subtract enough to really make a difference in the total amount of water.
Right.
So the water is static. Now the question becomes, and I've actually had this discussion with my wife. Here in Florida, we don't really have to worry about water droughts and things like they do in California.
Our aquifers are just absolutely packed full of water all the time. We're good on water here.
As far as I know, anyways. You may have a source that actually
no water
confirms
shortages
that.
here.
Yeah, we're not really worried about water shortages, to my knowledge. In California, though, water shortages constant drought, constant water shortages.
Yep.
Now, I understand in California why you would push a message of water conservation.
Right.
But in our area, where we don't have a shortage of water, at least based on our current usage, but we are stuck in a water cycle, is there a point at which our planet stops being able to process that water, so that the water is actually in danger of not being usable by any species, period? Or
so that gets down to the usable, at least for human. We'll talk about human consumption first. It gets down to the access to fresh water. Now we have the technology to desalinate or remove the salt from ocean water,
right?
But it takes a lot of energy. It's not an efficient process right now. So we can't just take a bunch of salt water from the oceans and turn it into drinkable water easily. We can do it, but it's slow and expensive right now. And this is something that mankind has tried to do, or is starting the research to try to solve problems in places similar, like California. They have a lot of problems over there. They don't get a whole lot of rain. Their aquifers stay dry. There's a huge population of people in California all trying to soak up water, but they're a coastal state. They've got a huge amount of coastline that they have all the rights to.
Mm-hmm.
If they had the technology to desalinate water from the ocean and obviously purify and, get all the fish shit out of it, purify that water and desalinate it, they could 100% solve their water problem. And just doing that in California would have no noticeable effect on the amount of water in the ocean at all. You wouldn't even, the people don't realize how much water is in the oceans. It's an enormous amount of water. We can't consume it all. It's an unbelievable amount of water.
Well, yeah, but if we just did it in California, but if we did it in the Sahara,
in every place that needs water, we could start having issues. Now that's a big job creator. We'd have lots of people working in desalination plants. We'd have we'd have to hire people to be able to import and export the water. people driving trucks and planes and taking care of the vessels and making the vessels that contain the water, that would employ millions of people worldwide.
But then you have to consider how much that change of because when you desalinate, you're changing the pH of the water. The salt content of the water is an important thing for oceans, for life in just on the grand scale.
So the ratio of salt to water in the ocean wouldn't change, because we'd be taking the water and the salt, and ideally we wouldn't be putting the salt back into the ocean.
But that's the problem.
That would add.
We wouldn't be putting the salt back in the ocean, but we'd be taking the salt out of the water, and we would be unnaturally speeding up the water cycle of that part of the water cycle, to where we would be creating a lot of fresh water that would then eventually get back into the oceans, would get back into the system without that salt content that we removed from it.
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
And maybe I'm wrong here, but I think when salt ocean water evaporates and becomes clouds, it's desalinated in the process.
I think so too, but there's a definitive amount that happens to on a standard basis. If we were to find a desalination process that did it in the amounts to resolve any water issue on human populated Earth, then I'm not sure we know what the ecosystem impacts of doing that with, so
I'm with you. I'd like to. This is one of those that we're about to get into an area where neither of us have any expertise. But I'd like to find out about that. Maybe if I remember, I'll look into it. I'd like to see how much water we would actually need to desalinate, and how much of that salt we could keep and use for salt purposes. There's lots of salt need, there's lots of ways we could change. I mean, you would dilute the, or saturate whatever the salt market, the salt economy would be destroyed by salt would basically become free because you'd have so much of it. You'd have a giant surplus of salt.
But is it a commodity now that is really, I know at one point it was used as currency, but today, I mean, I don't even know if that would really tank the salt industry. Maybe it would, but we already use it on roads to clear out snow, for God's sake. I mean, I'm not sure that the salt industry is one that it would go, oh, well, darn, we're out of business now. Well, they've just got so much coming in from that process. I think it may just be absorbed. See some
research on that.
Yeah, that maybe if we can find some sources, that'll become a broader topic for a future different topic. But for right now, we're gonna let that topic rest. We're gonna dry off, get out of the shower now, and I'm gonna go have some food.
Oh man.
The worst part is I often listen to this, taking a shower and proof this during my shower time in the mornings. So that's gonna be a weird shower time once this drops.
Right. All right. Well, let's wrap this up then.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, John, and I hope everybody has enjoyed the topics that we've brought about tonight.
Yeah, and if you have an opinion on the free will stuff, let us know in the comments. I feel like this is something I'm super interested in, so I want to continue having these conversations. And if we could get any guest at all that had an educated opinion on the free will stuff, I'd like to. I'd love to have that conversation.
The minute
even one
we
thing we didn't talk about there was that was a connection to physics and like predestination. Never mind. I'm gonna start a whole other thing here.
That's for another topic. That's a different.
I can
topic,
tease
John.
it a little bit. If deterministic physics, if we were to say that we know that if you could somehow have perfect knowledge of all of the particles, their position, their speed, their direction, at any given moment, you could rewind that activity. You could rewind every particle in the universe back to every single state they ever occupied, and every state of matter through all of time and all the way back to the beginning of time.
Oh yeah, that's totally a different topic, and
but
one that we need to get into
you
later.
Could do the same thing going forward in time.
Ideally.
So in a world where you have deterministic physics, it seems to be that predestination is a thing, because everything would be predetermined by the motion of particles in the universe. But Heisenberg's uncertainty principle comes in. So we don't have deterministic physics. We have indeterministic physics, and therefore there cannot be predestination.
Ooh. Yeah. That my palate is wet
moist
for that topic. Oh boy.
All right.
So
thanks for listening. Thanks.
Yeah.
We can. Yeah. We'll call it at that. Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a good night. Oh crap! John, don't hang up. Everything's falling. John, you're under my bed. Hold on. Stay with me.